The massive crystalline ship appeared without warning in Earth's atmosphere, its shimmering surface catching the morning sunlight like a diamond suspended above Seoul. The vessel dwarfed even the tallest skyscrapers, casting an enormous shadow that plunged the city into an artificial twilight. People stopped in their tracks, cars screeched to a halt, and millions of phones pointed skyward to capture humanity's first contact with alien life. Captain Jin-Ho Park stood rigid at his post outside the Seoul military headquarters, his heart pounding against his chest as he watched the impossible scene unfold. The ship's surface rippled like liquid metal, defying everything he knew about physics and engineering. After 15 years of military service, he had thought himself prepared for anything. He was wrong. "Sir, we're getting reports of similar vessels appearing over major cities worldwide," his aide reported, voice trembling slightly. "Beijing, Moscow, Washington, London. They're everywhere." Jin-Ho nodded silently, his fingers tightening around his rifle. The weapon, which had always made him feel secure, now seemed as threatening as a child's toy. What good would bullets do against beings capable of such technology? The air crackled with energy as a beam of light shot down from the alien vessel, materializing into a tall, elegant figure. The alien, there was no other word for it, stood nearly 8 feet tall, with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer like the surface of their ship. Its 4 arms moved with fluid grace as it approached the hastily assembled welcome party of military and government officials. "I am Tainul, ambassador of the Aldari Collective," the alien announced through a device that translated its musical language into perfect Korean. "We have come to recruit your species." Jin-Ho felt a chill run down his spine at the word recruit. There was something in the ambassador's tone that suggested this wasn't a friendly request for volunteers. His sister, Lieutenant Hye-Yun Park, appeared at his side, her fighter pilot's uniform crisp despite the chaos of the morning. "Something's wrong," she whispered. "This isn't a peaceful first contact." She was right. The ambassador's next words confirmed their worst fears. "Your world has been selected to provide military support in our war against the Nexus Empire," Tainul announced, its voice devoid of emotion. "Your species has shown remarkable potential for warfare, despite your primitive technology. You will serve in our fleets, fight our battles, and help us achieve victory." The South Korean president stepped forward, his face pale but determined. "And if we refuse?" Tainul's upper arms made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "Refusal is not an option. Those who reject conscription face immediate planetary sterilization. We have already eliminated 3 worlds that chose unwisely." The assembled crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Jin-Ho felt Hye-Yun's hand grip his shoulder, her fingers digging in painfully. He covered her hand with his own, trying to provide comfort even as his mind raced through scenarios, each more hopeless than the last. "You're talking about enslaving our entire species," someone in the crowd shouted. "We prefer the term mandatory military integration," Tainul replied. "You will be compensated with technology and protection. Your world will advance centuries within decades. The alternative is extinction." Over the next few hours, similar conversations played out across the globe. World leaders conducted emergency video conferences, military commanders assessed their options, and billions of humans watched their futures crumble before their eyes. "We can't fight them," Jin-Ho said quietly to Hye-Yun as they watched the alien ship hover over their city. "Look at that technology. They could wipe us out before we even got a shot off." "No," Hye-Yun agreed, her voice hard with suppressed rage. "We can't fight them now. But they're going to teach us how to fight in space, how to use their weapons, how to operate their ships." A dangerous smile crossed her face. "They're going to give us everything we need to eventually fight them." Jin-Ho looked at his sister, understanding dawning in his eyes. "They think we're just going to be their cannon fodder. They think we're primitive," Hye-Yun said. "They think we're simple. They haven't studied their history very well, have they? Every empire that's ever tried to use Koreans, Japanese, Chinese, or any other people as disposable troops has eventually regretted it. Around them, the city continued its descent into chaos as news of the ultimatum spread. But Jin-Ho felt an odd calm settle over him as he considered his sister's words. The Aldari had made a fundamental mistake. They had assumed that technological superiority equated to absolute superiority. "How long do you think it will take?" he asked. "For what?" "For us to learn enough to make them regret this." Hei-Yun's smile grew wider. "They're about to give humanity a crash course in interstellar warfare. I give it 5 years, maximum, before they realize their mistake. And by then, it will be too late." Above them, more alien ships appeared in the sky, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the setting sun and painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. It should have been beautiful, this moment of first contact. Instead, it was the beginning of humanity's greatest challenge, and though the Aldari didn't know it yet, their greatest mistake. The Aldari Warship's command center hummed with quiet energy as Commander Sun Mei Li studied the holographic display before her. After 3 months in space, she still marveled at the alien technology, but today her attention was focused on a more pressing concern. A group of mining vessels had strayed too close to the front lines, and enemy ships were closing in fast. "All vessels, fall back to defensive positions," the Aldari fleet commander ordered, his translated voice echoing through the communication channels. "Standard protocol dictates immediate retreat." Sun Mi frowned, her mind racing as she analyzed the situation. The mining ships were too slow to escape, and their escorts were outnumbered 3-1. But something about the scenario tickled her tactical instincts. "Sir, request permission to take command of the rescue operation," she said, stepping forward. The Aldari commander's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture she had learned indicated surprise or skepticism. "These are civilian vessels, Commander Li. The protocol is clear." "The protocol will get them killed," Sun Mai responded firmly. "I have an alternative approach." After a moment's hesitation, the Aldari commander nodded. They had learned in recent weeks that human suggestions, while unorthodox, often yielded unexpected results. Sun Mei opened a channel to the mining vessels. "This is Commander Li. All mining ships, begin dumping your ore. Create the widest possible debris field. Combat vessels, prepare for Pattern Delta." "Pattern Delta?" the Aldari commander questioned. "I'm not familiar with this protocol." "That's because we just invented it," Sun Mai replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "Watch and learn." The mining ships began releasing their cargo, thousands of tons of metallic ore spreading out in a glittering cloud. The enemy vessels, sleek warships of the Nexus Empire, continued their approach, clearly confused by the unexpected maneuver. "All combat ships, target the ore field with electromagnetic pulses," Sun Mai ordered. "Time it with my mark." The Aldari crew watched in bewilderment as the human commander positioned her forces. The enemy ships were now entering the debris field, their shields easily deflecting the small pieces of ore. "Now," Sun Mai commanded. Multiple electromagnetic pulses hit the debris field simultaneously. The metallic ore, suddenly magnetized, began attaching itself to the enemy vessel's hull plating. Within seconds, the Nexus ships were covered in a thick layer of ore, their engines straining against the added mass. "Second phase," Sun Mai announced. "All mining vessels, activate your collection beams." The mining ships, designed to gather and process ore, turned their powerful tractor beams on the enemy vessels. The already struggling ships, weighed down by layers of magnetized ore, found themselves being pulled in multiple directions at once. "Their shields are failing," an Aldari sensor operator reported, amazement clear in his voice. "Hull integrity compromised on 3 vessels." "Combat ships, target their exposed sections," Sun Mai ordered. "End this." The battle was over in minutes. The Nexus ships, their sophisticated defenses rendered useless by simple mining equipment, were either destroyed or forced to retreat. Not a single mining vessel was lost. In the aftermath, Ambassador Tainel himself arrived to review the battle recordings. Sun Mai stood at attention as the tall alien watched the replay, his silver skin reflecting the holographic lights. "Impossible," Tainel muttered, watching as the scene unfolded again. Using mining equipment as weapons, turning industrial tools into tactical advantages. These primitives shouldn't be capable of such adaptation. "Why not?" Sun Mai asked, unable to keep quiet. "Humans have always adapted. It's how we survived on Earth. We took things designed for one purpose and found new ways to use them." Tainel turned all four eyes toward her. "Your species was chosen because you showed potential as warriors. But this is not warfare as we understand it." "Maybe that's exactly why we're winning," Sun Mai suggested. "We don't fight the way you expect us to fight. We don't think the way you expect us to think." The ambassador's upper arms made a gesture of concession. "Perhaps, but it is concerning. 3 months ago, you could barely operate our basic systems. Now you're modifying our tactics, improvising with our technology, creating new combat protocols. And we're just getting started," Sun Mai said, allowing herself a small smile. "Every human soldier in your fleet is learning, adapting, finding new ways to fight. It's what we do." As if to prove her point, reports began coming in from other sectors. A human surgeon had reprogrammed maintenance drones to act as decoys during a skirmish. A lieutenant had used communication arrays to create a makeshift sensor jamming network. Everywhere humans were deployed, they were changing the rules of space warfare. Tainel departed without another word, but Sun Mai could sense his unease. The Aldari had expected obedient soldiers who would follow their precise, calculated battle plans. Instead, they had received innovators, improvisers, and tactical revolutionaries. Later that day, Sun Mai received a message from Earth. It was from Commander Jinho Park, now serving as a liaison between human forces and Aldari Command. The message was brief but brought a smile to her face. "Keep showing them what humans can do. They're starting to worry." "Good." Sun Mai looked out at the stars through the ship's viewing portal. The Aldari thought they had conscripted a primitive species to fight their battles. They were just beginning to realize that they had instead unleashed humanity's full potential across the galaxy. And as she had told the ambassador, this was just the beginning. Major Taiwan Kim sat in the dimly lit weapons lab aboard the Aldari cruiser, surrounded by disassembled plasma rifles. The blue glow of the workbench illuminated his focused expression as he made yet another adjustment to the weapon's power core. Other technicians, both human and Aldari, watched with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "You're wasting your time," one of the Aldari weapons masters said. "That design has been perfected over centuries. There's nothing left to improve." Taiwan didn't bother looking up from his work. After 6 months of studying Aldari technology, he had grown used to their dismissive attitudes. "Nothing is perfect," he muttered, carefully reconnecting a power coupling. "Everything can be improved." The weapon's core hummed to life, its tone slightly different from the standard issue rifles. Taiwan allowed himself a small smile as he checked the readings. The energy efficiency had increased by exactly 40%, just as his calculations had predicted. "Impossible," the Aldari weapons master said, his 4 eyes widening as he reviewed the data. "The containment field shouldn't be stable at those frequencies. It's stable because you never considered using a recursive feedback loop," Taiwan explained, lifting the modified rifle. "You've been building the same weapon the same way for so long, you stopped looking for alternatives." In another part of the massive ship, Lieutenant Hyun Park was proving a similar point in the flight simulators. Her squadron of human pilots had just completed another successful run against simulated Nexus forces, using maneuvers that made their Aldari instructors uncomfortable. "You can't fly like that," an Aldari flight commander protested, watching the replay of Hyun's fighters performing tight formation changes that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "The Q forces alone should have incapacitated your pilots." Hyun pointed to the success rates displayed on the screen. Yet we're achieving higher kill ratios than any other squadron in the fleet. Sometimes the best move is the one your enemy believes is impossible. Word of these human innovations spread quickly through the Aldari fleet. Taiwan's modified rifles were tested, retested, and finally put into production. Heiyun's tactical innovations were studied, and despite initial resistance, incorporated into training programs. How are they doing this? Tainel asked during a high-level briefing. They've had access to our technology for less than a year. A human officer in attendance, Captain Minji Song, spoke up. With respect, Ambassador, it's because we're not bound by your preconceptions. We're seeing your technology with fresh eyes. The Aldari think technology has limits, he explained to a group of human engineers. But limits are just problems we haven't solved yet. They say something can't be done because they tried it one way and failed. We try it 100 different ways until we find one that works. In the flight deck, Heiyun was teaching her pilots a new formation she called the swarm dance, a complex series of movements that looked chaotic but actually followed a precise mathematical pattern. The Nexus Empire's targeting systems, she had discovered, couldn't predict such seemingly random movements. Their computers look for logic, she told her squadron. Sometimes the most logical thing to do is to be illogical. The Aldari leadership watched these developments with growing unease. The humans weren't just learning their technology. They were reinventing it, pushing it beyond what the Aldari had thought possible. During a test of Taiwan's modified shields, a senior Aldari scientist finally asked the question that had been bothering many of them. Why didn't we think of these improvements ourselves? Taiwan paused in his work, considering the question carefully. Sometimes the hardest chains to break are the ones in our minds, he said. You've been using this technology for so long, you stopped questioning whether it could be better. Humans question everything. That evening, reports came in from the front lines. A squadron using Heiyun's tactics had successfully defended a crucial supply line against superior Nexus forces. Ships equipped with Taiwan's modifications had shown significantly improved performance in combat. The Aldari could no longer deny the evidence. Their primitive conscripts were rapidly becoming their greatest asset and their greatest source of innovation. As Taiwan had said, the only real limitations were the ones they had placed on themselves. In her quarters, Heiyun received a message from her brother Jinho. Keep pushing boundaries. They're starting to realize they need us more than we need them. She smiled, already planning her next impossible maneuver. The Aldari had given humanity access to advanced technology, expecting them to simply follow instructions. Instead, they had given wings to human ingenuity, and now they were beginning to understand just how high humans could fly. Colonel Ji Wu Kang watched in growing concern as the massive Nexus fleet emerged from hyperspace around Sirius Prime. Red warning lights flooded the bridge of her command ship as sensors detected the enemy's trap, a complex network of gravity generators that had turned the entire sector into a deadly snare. Multiple Nexus dreadnoughts detected, her tactical officer reported, voice tight with tension. They're positioning themselves around the gravity well. We're being boxed in. The Aldari Fleet Admiral's image appeared on the main view screen, his silver skin reflecting the emergency lighting. All vessels, prepare for standard defensive formation Delta. We must maintain. With respect, Admiral, Ji-Woo interrupted, her mind already racing through possibilities. Standard formations won't work here. They've studied our tactics. They're counting on us to follow protocol. What do you suggest, Colonel? The Admiral asked, his four eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of stress Ji-Woo had learned to recognize. Ji-Woo's fingers flew across her tactical display. Look at their positioning. They expect us to try to break out using our warships, but we have other assets they're not accounting for. She opened a channel to the fleet's civilian support vessels. This is Colonel Kang. All cargo ships, dump your non-essential cargo and prepare for emergency maneuvers. Combat vessels, form up behind them in scattered formation. The Aldari Admiral's expression showed confusion. Colonel, those are supply ships. They're not designed for combat. Exactly, Jiwoo smiled. That's why this will work. She quickly outlined her plan. The cargo ships, massive and heavily built for hauling supplies, would charge straight at the enemy line. Behind them, fighter squadrons would use the chaos to exploit gaps in the Nexus formation. It's insane, one of the Aldari captains protested. Those cargo ships will be destroyed. No, Jiwoo countered. Their weapons are calibrated for warship shields. Cargo vessels have different shielding frequencies, and they're much stronger than they look. They're built to withstand asteroid impacts. With no better options, the Admiral gave his approval. Jiwoo took direct command of the operation, coordinating with both the cargo fleet and the fighter squadrons. Back in the weapons lab, Taiwan had moved on to improving the ship's shield generators. He had noticed that the Aldari used a fixed frequency for their defensive barriers, effective, but predictable. His team was developing a system that would randomly vary the shield frequencies, making them harder to penetrate. All cargo vessels, full power to forward shields, she ordered. Fighters, stay in their sensor shadow until my mark. Everyone else, prepare to exploit any openings they create. The Nexus commanders watched in apparent confusion as the lumbering cargo ships began their charge. Their confusion turned to alarm when they realized the massive vessels weren't stopping or trying to evade their fire. Now, Jiwoo commanded. The cargo ships slammed into the Nexus battle line at full speed. Their reinforced hulls, designed to withstand the rigors of space mining and freight hauling, crashed through the enemy formation like battering rams. Enemy ships scattered, their carefully planned trap disrupting as they tried to avoid the unexpected ramming attack. Fighter squadrons, execute attack pattern Kang 7, Jiwoo ordered. The fighters, hidden in the sensor shadow of the cargo ships, burst forth like angry wasps. They targeted the Nexus ships' blind spots, weaknesses in their defense that human pilots had discovered through countless simulations. The gravity well is weakening, her tactical officer reported. Their generator network is losing coherence. Jiwoo nodded. All warships, target those gaps. Concentrate fire on their command and control nodes. The battle transformed into controlled chaos. Cargo ships continued their battering ram attacks. Fighters struck at vital systems, and the main fleet exploited every opening. The Nexus commanders, thrown off balance by tactics they had never encountered, struggled to adapt. Hours later, as the last Nexus ships retreated in disarray, Jiwoo stood before a hastily convened meeting of the Aldari High Command. Ambassador Tainel was among them, watching her with an unreadable expression. Your tactics violated every principle of space combat we know, one commander said. Yes, Jiwoo agreed. That's why they worked. The enemy knew all your principles too. They didn't expect cargo ships to be used as weapons, or civilian vessels to have military applications. Tainel stepped forward. Perhaps, he admitted to his fellow commanders, we underestimated the humans' potential. They don't think like us, and that may be their greatest strength. The battle became known as the turning point of Sirius Prime. It marked the first time human tactics had been employed on such a large scale, and its success could not be ignored. More importantly, it showed the Aldari that their human conscripts were far more than simple soldiers. In her quarters later, Jiwoo received messages from both Sunmi Lee and Taiwan Kim, congratulating her on the victory. But it was the message from Haeyeon Park that made her smile the most. You just showed them what happens when you give humans a problem we're not supposed to be able to solve. Keep pushing. They're finally starting to understand what they've unleashed. Looking out at the stars through her viewport, Jiwoo thought about how far humanity had come since being forcibly conscripted. The Aldari had wanted obedient soldiers. Instead, they got innovators who questioned everything, adapted constantly, and turned their own assumptions against them. The Battle of Sirius Prime wasn't just a military victory. It was proof that humanity could not be contained by anyone's expectations, not even those of an advanced alien civilization. And this was only the beginning. General Minho Choi paced the holographic command center of the Aldari flagship, watching as hundreds of ships moved according to his new battle plans. A year ago, such a sight would have been unthinkable, humans commanding the most advanced fleet in known space. Yet here they were. "Strike Group Alpha, execute maneuver pattern Echo," he ordered, watching as the ships responded instantly. The human-inspired tactics had become standard throughout the Collective's forces, spreading like wildfire after the Battle of Sirius Prime. "Sir, the Nexus fleet is responding exactly as predicted," his tactical officer reported. "They're moving to counter our apparent retreat." Minho smiled. The Nexus Empire still hadn't learned. They kept trying to predict human strategies using their old models and algorithms. But humans didn't fight according to fixed patterns or mathematical formulas. "Launch Operation Thunderstorm," he commanded. Across the battlefield, seemingly scattered ships suddenly formed new patterns. Supply vessels transformed into weapon platforms using Taiwan's modifications. Fighter squadrons emerged from hidden positions, using Heiyun's unpredictable flight patterns. The Nexus fleet found itself caught in a three-dimensional web of coordinated chaos. In another sector, Admiral Sunmi Lee stood before the Aldari War Council, her admiral's insignia gleaming on her uniform. The chamber was filled with the Collective's highest-ranking military leaders, their silver skin reflecting the soft light. "The statistics are undeniable," she said, gesturing to the battle reports floating in the air. "Since implementing human tactical doctrines, our victory ratio has increased by 300%. Enemy casualties have doubled while our losses have been cut in half." "But these tactics," one council member protested, "they defy conventional military wisdom. Using maintenance ships as stealth platforms, converting mining lasers into weapons. It's chaos." "Controlled chaos," Sunme corrected. "You wanted soldiers. Instead, you got warriors who question, adapt, and overcome." The Nexus Empire isn't just fighting the Collective anymore. They're fighting humanity. Back in the battle, Minho's forces were demonstrating exactly what she meant. A group of converted cargo ships suddenly released their holds, spreading a cloud of metallic debris that played havoc with enemy sensors. Fighter squadrons dove through the chaos, their pilots executing maneuvers that the Aldari had once deemed impossible. "They're trying to retreat," his tactical officer reported with satisfaction. "Not this time," Minho replied. "Execute Phase 3. Hidden throughout the battlefield, automated drones, reprogrammed by human engineers, activated their gravity generators. The retreating Nexus ships found their escape routes cut off by miniature gravity wells, a trick that would have been impossible before humans started tinkering with Aldari technology." In the War Council chamber, Sun Mei continued her presentation. "Our greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our ability to innovate, to see possibilities where others see limitations." She brought up footage from recent battles. Human commanders leading mixed crews of aliens and humans, ships performing maneuvers that defied traditional space combat doctrine, weapons and systems being used in ways their designers never intended. "Look at these results," she insisted. "Every time the Nexus Empire adapts to one of our strategies, we create 3 new ones. They can't predict us because we don't think like them, or like you." The council members watched in silence as battle after battle showed the same pattern, human innovation leading to decisive victories. The Nexus Empire, once seemingly invincible, was being pushed back on all fronts. As if to emphasize her point, Minho's battle reached its conclusion. The trapped Nexus fleet, faced with tactics they couldn't counter and technology being used in ways they never expected, was forced to surrender. "The Nexus Empire has lost 12 major engagements in the past month alone," Sunmei continued. "All under human command, all using human tactics. This isn't coincidence. This is evolution." One of the eldest council members leaned forward. "And what happens when the war is over, Admiral Lee? What happens when these human warriors you've created no longer have an enemy to fight?" Sun Mai met his gaze steadily. That depends entirely on how you choose to treat us going forward. You forced us into this war. We've proven our worth not just as soldiers, but as leaders and innovators. The question isn't what we'll do after the war. It's whether you're ready to accept us as equals. The chamber fell silent as her words sank in. The Aldari had conscripted what they thought was a primitive species to fight their battles. Instead, they had unleashed humanity's full potential, and now they had to live with the consequences. As reports of Minho's latest victory reached the council chamber, Sunmai allowed herself a small smile. The tables hadn't just turned, they had been completely reinvented, just like everything else humans had touched in this war. The Nexus Empire was learning what the Aldari were beginning to understand. Humanity wasn't just fighting their war anymore. They were transforming it, and in doing so, they were transforming the balance of power in the galaxy itself. Jin-Ho Park walked through the crystalline halls of the Aldari High Command's central chamber, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. 18 months ago, he had stood on Earth watching helplessly as these same aliens forced humanity into their war. Now he was here to change the terms of that arrangement forever. Representative Park, Tainel greeted him, the ambassador's silver skin reflecting the chamber's soft light. The High Command will see you now. The massive doors slid open, revealing the most powerful beings in the Aldari collective. 12 senior commanders sat in a semicircle, their multiple eyes fixed on the human before them. Jin-Ho felt the weight of history on his shoulders as he took his position at the center of the chamber. "You know why I'm here," Jin-Ho began, his voice steady. "Humanity has proven itself not just capable, but essential to this war effort. We're not asking for equality anymore. We're demanding it." He activated a holographic display, showing battle statistics and victory records. In the past 6 months, human commanders have led 70% of successful operations against the Nexus Empire. Our tactical innovations have become standard practice throughout your fleet. Our modifications to your technology have given us advantages you never thought possible. One of the commanders leaned forward. "We acknowledge humanity's contributions, Representative Park. But the collective has existed for millennia with clear hierarchies and protocols." "Those hierarchies weren't working," Jin-Ho countered. "That's why you needed us in the first place. You dragged us into your war, and now you need us more than we need you." He brought up footage from recent battles, human-led squadrons executing impossible maneuvers, modified ships performing beyond their original specifications, innovative tactics turning certain defeat into victory. "Look at these results," Jin-Ho continued. "Admiral Lee's fleet has the highest success rate in the collective. General Choi's battle doctrine has been adopted by even your most traditional commanders. Major Kim's weapons modifications have become standard issue throughout the fleet." The chamber fell silent as the evidence mounted. The Aldari had wanted cannon fodder. Instead, they got innovators who had revolutionized their entire approach to warfare. "And what exactly are you proposing?" another commander asked. "Full integration of human officers at all command levels, equal representation in strategic planning, access to all technological developments, and most importantly, recognition of Earth as a full member of the collective, not a conscripted world." Tainel stepped forward. "This is unprecedented. No conscripted species has ever done what we've done." Jin-Ho interrupted. "We didn't just learn to use your technology. We improved it. We didn't just follow your tactics. We created better ones. We didn't just fight your war. We're winning it." He displayed more battle footage, human innovations turning the tide again and again. "Remember how you thought we were primitives? Look at what those primitives have accomplished. Now imagine what we could do as equals." One of the eldest commanders spoke up. "And if we refuse these demands?" Jin-Ho's expression hardened. "Then you'll have to find someone else to lead your fleets, modify your weapons, train your pilots, and win your battles. Good luck with that." The threat hung in the air. Everyone in the chamber knew it wasn't empty. Human commanders had become too integral to the war effort. Human innovations had spread too far through the collective's forces. Human methods had proven too effective to abandon. You understand what you're asking, Tainel said. Equal status would give humanity access to all collective technology, all our knowledge. Technology we've already mastered and improved, Jin Ho pointed out. Knowledge we've already expanded. You're not giving us access to anything we haven't already earned. He walked around the chamber, meeting each commander's gaze. You forced us into this war thinking we would be obedient soldiers. Instead, we became leaders, innovators, and warriors who surpassed your expectations in every way. Now you have a choice. Accept us as equals, or lose everything we've brought to your collective. The commanders conferred among themselves, their musical language filling the chamber. Jin Ho waited patiently, knowing he held the stronger position. Finally, the head of the High Command stood. Your terms are accepted, Representative Park. Earth will be granted full member status in the collective, with all rights and privileges thereof. Jin Ho nodded, allowing himself a small smile. Later that night, he sent a message to his sister Hei-yun. It's done. We're no longer their conscripts. We're their equals. And soon, maybe more than that. The response came quickly. They still don't fully understand what they've unleashed, do they? Looking out at the alien city through his chamber window, Jin Ho thought about how far humanity had come. The Aldari had forced them into this war, thinking they were drafting simple soldiers. Instead, they had given humanity the means to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. And this was just the beginning. Admiral Hei-yun Park stood at the observation window of the massive peace conference station, watching ships from both the Collective and the Nexus Empire dock in perfect formation. 5 years ago, she had been a lieutenant watching alien ships descend over Seoul. Now she was preparing to end the war that had changed everything. The Nexus delegation has arrived, her aide reported. They're requesting to begin the proceedings early. Hei-yun smiled slightly. Of course they were eager. Their empire was crumbling under the weight of humanity's military innovations. Every day they delayed meant more systems falling to tactics they couldn't counter. The conference chamber was a marvel of alien architecture, with sweeping crystal arches and floating holographic displays. Representatives from both powers sat in tiered rows, their differences in appearance stark, but their expressions sharing the same mix of exhaustion and weariness. Tainel sat to one side, watching as Hei-yun took her position at the center. The Aldari ambassador had aged visibly over the past 5 years, his silver skin dulled by stress and worry. 5 years ago, Hei-yun began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. The Aldari Collective arrived on Earth and gave us an ultimatum. Fight or die. We chose to fight, but not in the way anyone expected. She activated a holographic display, showing the progression of the war. In 5 years, humanity went from conscripts to commanders. We didn't just learn to use your technology. We revolutionized it. We didn't just follow your tactics. We created new ones that neither side could have imagined. The Nexus representatives shifted uncomfortably as battle footage played, showing their defeats at the hands of human-led forces. Innovative strategies, modified weapons, and unconventional tactics had torn through their defenses again and again. We didn't want this war, Hei-yun continued, meeting the eyes of both Collective and Nexus leaders. But you forced our hand, and in doing so, you forced yourselves to evolve. The galaxy will never be the same. She brought up the peace terms. The fighting ends today. All occupied systems will be returned to their original controllers. Trade routes will be reopened. And most importantly, humanity will have a seat at the table in all future galactic affairs. You're in no position to make such demands, a Nexus commander protested. Actually, we are, Hei-yun replied calmly. Your empire has lost 30 major systems in the past month alone. Your forces can't counter our tactics. Your engineers can't match our innovations. This isn't a negotiation. It's a chance for you to save what's left. From his position, Tainel watched with a mixture of pride and concern. The humans had exceeded every expectation, but in doing so, they had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. The Aldari thought they had conscripted cannon fodder. Instead, they had awakened the sleeping giant. He-Yun continued outlining the terms, each point demonstrating humanity's new position of strength. Access to all technological developments would be shared. Trade would flow freely between all powers, and Earth would have equal status in all future alliances. "The war is over," she declared. "Now we begin building something new. A galaxy where innovation is valued over tradition, where adaptation is more important than protocol, where no species is considered too primitive to contribute." The signing ceremony was brief. Both powers knew they had no choice. Humanity had become too powerful to ignore or oppose. As the delegates filed out, He-Yun found herself alone with Tainel. "Did you ever imagine this outcome?" she asked him. "When you came to Earth that day?" The ambassador shook his head. "We thought we were recruiting soldiers. Instead, we gave weapons and knowledge to the most adaptive species in known space. Perhaps it was inevitable that you would surpass us." He-Yun looked out at the assembled ships, Collective, Nexus, and the new human designs that had changed the face of warfare. "This is just the beginning, you know. Humanity won't stop innovating, won't stop pushing boundaries." "I know," Tainel replied quietly. "That's what terrifies many of us." As she prepared to leave the station, He-Yun received messages from her brother Jinho and the others who had helped reshape the galaxy. They had all come so far from that day when alien ships darkened Earth's skies. She sent a final message to them all. "Peace is signed. The galaxy is changed forever. Now let's show them what humanity can do when we're not just fighting to survive." Looking out at the stars, He-Yun thought about the future. The Aldari had forced humanity into their war, never realizing they were creating something far more powerful than mere soldiers. They had given humanity the keys to the stars, and now there was no going back. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly how humanity wanted it.